I haven't drank alcohol in over a year now, and what I've learned is that most people don't drink alcohol because they actually enjoy it. They drink it because they're avoiding something. And if you're watching this video, I have a feeling you realize that, but you haven't allowed yourself to accept what it is that you're running from. And so you continuously find yourself restarting every Monday saying that I'm not going to get drunk again. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm finally going to get my life together. I'm going to start going to the gym, start taking care of my body. And then by Friday, the only thing that you can think of is having another drink. So then you go out with the boys and you repeat the same cycle over and over again. And I know this because I did this for a very long time. You see, growing up, I was always angry. I have an older brother and a younger sister. And every time we would go out, people would only talk about how different I was compared to my siblings because my siblings were bubbly, they were social, they were easy to connect with. But me, I was the complete opposite. You would always see me somewhere hidden in a corner, just mad about something. And this was pretty much my entire life until my mom got eventually so worried about me that she put me into football. And then I was able to put that anger into something external instead of just bottling up in the internal. And I become obsessed with football. It was the only thing that I can think of. I would wake up early before school and I would go out and I would practice. I would run routes. I would watch film and do everything that I could to become the best version of me because as I was playing football, I never had to think about the things that were running through my mind that made me feel insecure, that made me feel angry that was making me anxious. I was able to block it out with this external thing that was now football for me. And that lasted all the way up until I was a sophomore in college. And football got taken away from me because I had 4 surgeries within 3 years. And eventually the doctor said if I wanted to be able to continue to use my shoulders, I was going to have to stop playing football. And that's whenever I fell into drinking. I transferred schools and spent the next 2 to 3 years that I was in college doing nothing but finding an excuse to drink. If it was Wine Wednesday, Thirsty Thursday, whatever it was, I was there and I had a bottle in my hand because as I was drinking, it allowed me to tap into a level of courage, or at least that's what I would tell myself, that I didn't have whenever I was sober. And so I always was drinking because that's when I felt like people connected with me the most. That's when people liked me the most. So I always found a reason to drink. I even became a club promoter so that I could have a job centered around drinking. And this went on all the way up until I graduated college. I said to myself throughout college that, like, whenever I graduated, I would finally stop. And of course, it didn't stop immediately. I continued going down the same path until eventually I moved here to Chicago. And when I moved to Chicago, I started to learn about entrepreneurship and different opportunities. And so I gave up drinking and decided to focus on potentially building a career for myself or like trying to grow up is what I was telling myself. And as soon as I stopped drinking, I started having severe panic attacks and I had no idea where they were coming from. I would be in the office and out of nowhere, I would be gripping my pencil so hard that I'd be shaking. I wouldn't really be able to hear anybody else around me because I'd be so lost in my thoughts. And what was happening that I didn't realize at the time was that all of the thoughts that I was avoiding from drinking, from playing sports, and just suppressing them, they were starting to slowly start to bubble up and come up to the top. And so I probably stopped drinking for 2 months. And then I said, okay, I can't handle this anymore. And instead of me dealing with the emotions, I decided to start drinking again. And I lowered the amount of times I was drinking to give me credit. I was only drinking on the weekends, but I got to the point where it was like every time I drank, I was blacking out again. And I remember clearly that one day after um, me and my friends went on a bender for one of my birthdays, I was doing the morning huddle, I guess you can say, with my buddies, just kind of talking about the night before and trying to piece together what happened. And I remember one of them telling me that I walked away from the club in this area that I didn't know, and I just was not responding to my phone. So then they started to track me on Find My Friends or whatever on your iPhone, and they found me laying in a puddle covered in blood because apparently while I was blacked out drunk, I decided to try and walk home, tripped on a curb, cut my hand, and fell into a puddle and got blood all over me. That was the time when I realized that if I truly wanted to make anything of my life, I was going to have to give up drinking. And my family talked me into going to see a therapist. And at first, the therapist would just continuously get me to try and relive these same experiences or different things like that. And I told him the main reason I was there was to be able to get over alcohol because I felt like people only liked me whenever I was drunk. And I remember him looking me in the face and saying, "Malachi, you realize whenever you drink, you are not turning into a new person. You are just giving yourself permission to be more of who you already are." And that statement alone was the thing that finally got me to stop. I realized that every single time I was relying on alcohol to be able to conjure up a type of emotion, whether it was courage or whatever I was looking to be able to feel in that moment, every time I relied on alcohol to be able to generate that feeling with inside of me, it stopped me from being able to do it myself whenever it wasn't there. That's where the panic attack came from. Because instead of me saying, "Oh, I have to face these emotions and figure out a way to be able to do it myself," I told myself that if I didn't have alcohol, then I was less of who I thought I was, and it made me anxious. It made me feel worthless. It made me feel as if I was not enough. And so I tied a lot of my self-worth to the person that I thought I could become from drinking alcohol. And I never realized that I could just be that person if I gave myself permission to. I didn't need some external thing to make me feel a certain way internally. And I say that story because, again, a majority of people do not enjoy drinking alcohol. They do it as an escape, whether that's an escape from their current reality, whether that's an escape from the thoughts that are continuously running through their mind. But until you learn to face those things and look at them head on and say that I will no longer be ruled by this fear, by this insecurity, by this current reality that makes me feel anchored, that makes me feel not worthy, that makes me feel less, you will continuously rely on alcohol and retreat back to that substance to try and make you feel a certain type of way. And it's crazy because if you really think about it, alcohol is just a poison that people put into their body. And it makes them be able to delude themselves into thinking that it's an enjoyable experience. And so people would rather poison themselves than face the emotions or the fear of being able to figure out what is truly going on with themselves. And that's crazy. And it's crazy. That's why I say, if you truly want to be the best version of yourself, you have to stop drinking alcohol. Because every time you drink alcohol, you rob yourself from being the version of you that you know you can be. Because you rely on this external source to be able to make you feel a certain way internally. And every time you do that, you become a slave to that source. And so that's why every weekend, whenever you told yourself last weekend you're not going to drink, you end up going back and doing the same exact habit. And it's not because you enjoy it, it's because there's something much deeper that you are preventing yourself from being able to figure out, to work through, or to realize. And as soon as you can build up enough courage to take that first step to understanding what is truly going on within inside of you, that will be the first step to being able to give up alcohol. And the thing is, it's not even like when you do this, it's going to be like a long process. As soon as I realized this and I realized that I wanted to be somebody who could be courageous in social situations, who can connect with other people and who can choose how they feel at any moment without having to rely on alcohol. I stopped drinking alcohol. It wasn't like okay, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol for 6 months and then hopefully I'll be done. I originally told myself I would only drink for special occasion. And so I would drink for like once every like 2 to 3 months. And eventually I said, you know what, I don't need alcohol to be a part of my life anymore, and I just stopped. It wasn't like I teetered into it or anything. I didn't tiptoe. I just completely dove into it because what I did was I transformed the version of myself that I thought I was, that I saw who I saw when I looked in the mirror. Because when you change your identity and you shift the character, you shift the outcome. Whenever you shift yourself from somebody who feels like they need alcohol to be able to feel a certain type of way to somebody who knows that they can choose how they feel in any given moment regardless on their initial reaction, they have the opportunity to be able to choose how they respond. And when you can do that, you no longer have to try and trick yourself by taking baby steps to change. And all that really is doing is it's prolonging the process because for you to change, you really just have to make a decision. And all you're doing when you do that is you prolong the time it takes for you to make the decision that you know is best for you. And the longer it takes for you to make that decision, the longer it prevents you from being able to step into the version of you that you know you were meant to be. And so that's why I wanted to make the video because alcohol is something that will silently rob you of the life that you were supposed to live and make you feel as if you were happy that it didn't. And that's crazy. That's crazy. So, yeah, the main thing that I want to kind of finish the video with is that for you to truly be able to get over your need to drink alcohol or whatever you want to call it, you have to realize that it is nothing but a poison that prevents you from being able to truly be the version of you that you were truly meant to be. And that's it. And when you realize that and you weigh the pros and cons, at least for me, I realized that I would much rather go through the work of being able to become that version of me than sip on a bottle and hope that eventually things will work out.